Coming up, it's time to turn the page to spring sports. We've got track, baseball, and softball to check in on. And we're going to hear from the coaches, players, and experts coming up on Varsity Sports. And hello and welcome to Varsity Sports alongside Jason Andera. I am Jay Elsen. Well, it's an exciting time of year, Jason, as we delve into the spring sports season here on Varsity Sports. A lot to get to here over the next 30 minutes, but we're going to start with South Dakota baseball.
Yeah, I just want to tell everybody we are going to get to some North Dakota baseball. We're going to get to some North Dakota softball, but this week we're going to take a look at South Dakota baseball, and specifically in Class A. There are a lot of good teams this year, Jay. It's a wide open mix, and who better to preview some of this than the actual players and coaches themselves? We caught up with some of the best teams in Class A, and here's what they had to say.
We're excited about our older kids getting an opportunity to prove what they've learned over the last couple of years and hopefully lead our younger group as well, because we have a very talented underclass.
One of the biggest things is defense, getting used to playing with everybody at the different positions and everybody kind of meshing together and knowing where that next person will be is where I think I've seen our biggest progression at.
You know, we're not looking to rebuild and fall back. Some of the players that we have, some of the juniors, the first-time players we've had, we've been really surprised with their progress so far. And so, yeah, we have a fairly high expectation for our team, actually, as the season starts today.
As a total progression deal, it's really fun as a coach to watch your kid at the beginning of the season and how they end up towards the end of the season. The things that you nitpicked on at the beginning of the season that you wanted to work with them and what they've come up to be towards the end of the year is really nice seeing that. So as a coach, we want to make sure that we're progressing at the levels we need to be, and we're making productive innings out of our pitchers, productive outs, productive at-bats, you know, all the way up to where we want to get. You know, we're a team that always you want to win every game.
You know, this year we got a pretty good defense, I think. We got a lot of guys that can make the routine plays. We don't try to ask our guys to do too much more. You know, we have some pretty good depth, I think, too. We don't have a lot of experience on this team, but what we do is we have about 15 to 20 guys where I'd feel comfortable putting out there right now, which is, it's a great problem to have.
Well, we feel like we have a very good, experienced team as far as senior leadership. We have 12 seniors. Not all of them are healthy right now, but once we're clicking on all cylinders, we feel like we can compete with anybody in the state.
We had a great squad, a great run last year. And, you know, the pressure is high, but we know what we can do, and we're just going to approach the game with our own mentality, and hopefully we can come out on top again and play some winning baseball.
We've come into it, we've had a different coach every year, so you got to do things their way and add your own little spin to it. Make sure everyone's there doing what they're supposed to do.
We have a lot of pitching. That's nice to have. Pretty deep lineup. A lot of good guys on the team. That's one good thing too. As you can see by practice, we're all here having a good time, getting along with each other. I'm a new coach and don't have any biased opinions, so everybody's kind of getting a chance to see if they can contribute.
All right, Jason, now it's time to take a look at some of the teams to watch. You, of course, do power rankings for football, basketball, why not baseball? So here it is, your early season top 5 in South Dakota Class A.
Yeah, and like you said, we cover football, we cover basketball, and both those two sports, Lincoln ended up the season as the #1 team. Why not put them as my preseason
right?
#1 team? They won the baseball title last year. They only lose 4 seniors off that team. A new coach in the mix. I don't know how that will translate, but they're used to that. They've had new coaches over the last several seasons, so I think they do all right there. They're 2 All-State players, Parker Bullard, Nolan Birchall, both back in the mix. And then you look at the rest of the field. A lot of coaches told me they expect Roosevelt to maybe drop off a little bit, but we've seen it. Early season, strong wins for them. I think they belong at #2. Stuart Baruth, one of the best pitchers in the state. Washington looks like they're in a good position this year. Again, they've got a new coach to deal with. And O'Gorman, it really brings back some good players in Reese Mimic, AJ Martinez, and Mason Cook. Some seniors that really need to fuel the fire. And then Brookings, they've lost a couple games early as well. They've lost to Pierre. Pierre could be in this list. But I think Brookings will win out and be one of the top 5 teams this season.
The consensus among coaches is that this thing is wide open in Class A, maybe more wide open than it's ever been. And yet, as you look at the top 4 in your power rankings there, Jason, it seems like the best baseball is still going to be played in Sioux Falls.
And we did talk to coaches outside of Sioux Falls. We're not Sioux Falls centric here, and they agree. The teams to beat are in Sioux Falls.
Interesting. All right, let's take a look at Class B. St. Thomas More, as always, right there in the mix.
Yeah, they are the #1 team. A lot of great players back. Travis Mills, George Akarius, a great pitcher. Madison, #2 on this list. A lot of youth on this team. They've turned over a lot of players that graduated from last year's championship level team, but they'll still be tough. And then Bonham, always good with Chase Corton, maybe one of the best players in this class. West Central and Winter, always good as well.
All right, well, as Jason mentioned, we are going to take a look at North Dakota baseball and softball next week here on Varsity Sports. Those aren't the only sports going on right now, though. The high school track and field season also underway, and when we come back, we're going to take a quick look at some of this year's standout athletes.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
All right, there is a capsule of some of what will be missed in the track and field scene across the Dakotas. But on a happier note, we'll bring in Alex Heinert to help us find some new faces to replace those great athletes. Alex?
Hey, thanks, Jay. Well, I know it feels like we lost a lot in terms of star power on the track in the high school ranks. And to be honest, we have. That senior class from last year is off competing literally from coast to coast right now, many at the Division I level. But with the likes of Lemke and Yoakum and Gandon and company, while they've moved on, there are still a lot of great track and field athletes back this year, starting in South Dakota with two of the most accomplished runners in the state's history. I'm talking about Courtney Dowling of Pierre and Macy Hines of Ipswich. Hines at this point doesn't really need an introduction, but just in case you're new, here are the basics. She's been named the Class B Outstanding Track Athlete at the last 3 state meets. She won the 100, the 400, the 800, and the mile at the state meet this past year, and that makes it 11 track titles for her career. Plus, she's the reigning Class B cross-country champ, and she's only a sophomore. That, by the way, the same age that Courtney Dowling was last year when Dowling broke the all-time South Dakota record in the 400 meters at the state meet with a 55.11 clocking. She swept the 100 and the 200 at state as well for the 2nd straight year. She just keeps getting better. I was at the Al Sali Indoor Meet in Aberdeen last week and watched her break her own meet record in the 200 meters minutes after winning the 800 against a pretty solid field of ES team. She's fantastic. Other names to watch include Belfouche's Shayla Howell. She won the 100 and placed in 3 events at the state Class A's last year as an 8th grader, and she's already hit the qualifying mark in each of those events this year. Also, Irene McConda's Lauren Sokolowski. She's chasing her 4th straight title in the Class B 100-meter hurdles. On the boys' side in South Dakota, there's a strong field of distance runners chasing history, and leading that pack is Sioux Falls Lincoln's Will Lauer. The Stanford recruit and reigning AA cross-country champ set a new Dakota relays record in the 3,200 meters last spring, and while he missed the state meet last year due to injury, we can only hope he's healthy this May for a great showdown with Jacob Simmons of Sturgis, the reigning 800 and mile champion. In Class B, it's all about Brennan Schmidt of Freeman. The future South Dakota Coyote won the Open 400 and anchored the Flyers' winning 4x4 relay team last year. He's a lot of fun to watch. Some other names to look for this year. How about a strong group of sprinters in AA with Taryn Christian of Roosevelt and Watertown's Mason Herrick's the ones to beat in the 100 and 200, and Anthony Bachmeyer of Aberdeen Central and Ned Sudbeck of Lincoln, the class of the 400 ranks. North of the border we go. We got a couple of rough riders leading our list. Ashley Rowan of Grand Forks Red River. She won the 400 last year. She finished second in the 1 and the 2 in Class A, while her teammate Hannah Arison won the javelin by a full 17 feet, an event where she's in the top 4 all-time in North Dakota. Arison also won the high jump title last year, just because. Class B has some of the more decorated returners in the state, including Asha Smith of Watford City and Dakota Wood of Hazen. Smith took home the distance treble as a sophomore. That's the 800, the mile, and the 2 mile, after winning the mile, 2 mile, and the cross-country title in 2013. Wood knows about repeating as well, as she's the 2-time defending champ in both hurdle events. Finally, keep an eye on what junior Lexi Whitmire of Rolette Wolford does for an encore after breaking the North Dakota high jump record with a 5'10 clearance at the state meet. For reference, 5'3 won Class A in North Dakota, 5'7 won Class AA in South Dakota, and 5'10, what Whitmire jumped last year, that won the Summit League outdoor title. She's fantastic. In the boys' ranks in North Dakota, there's no bigger star than Minnesota recruit John Tharaldson of Bismarck. He's second all-time in state history in the shot put with a toss of over 63 feet last year. He'll be a big favorite to earn his 3rd straight shot title and possibly his first discus crown in Class A. Class B's got a ton of returning title winners, including mile and 2-mile champ Ryan Wheeling of Newtown. He's going to resume what's been a great distance battle with Shiloh Christian's Elliott Stone, the 2-time reigning cross-country champ, who finished second in the 3 distance events last year. For sprinters in North Dakota, look out for Minot's Carter Gorney in Class A, Lou Dobitz of Killdeer in Class B. Both of those guys are fantastic. A lot of accolades to get to. It's going to be a really fun season, a ton of fun kids to watch. This is only a half-hour show, so we're not really even scratching the surface, but much more to come in just a moment, Jay.
All right, Alex, you should take a breath. I feel like you just ran a race there. But stay put. We're going to come right back to you in a bit. Preview the big class in South Dakota a little bit later on. But up next, we're going to take a look at what we can expect in North Dakota Class A. Stay with us.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back. Well, Alex is rested and ready to go again. We're going to set him on another run here. North Dakota Class A boys track and field, Alex. It's been dominated by Bismarck High for more than a decade now. The Demons are going for their 12th straight title this spring. Do they make it? It even does it.
Here are my thoughts on that. When I started looking back at last year's results, the first thing that jumps out is that Bismarck won the 2014 Class A title by 85 points over a loaded Century team. But that Demon team also graduated a massive number of great athletes from that side. So it would stand to reason that they'd be vulnerable this year, right? Well, think again. I mean, they notched their 10th straight cross-country title this fall by 60 points over runner-up Davies. They placed 5 competitors in the top 12, 8 in the top 30, including individual champion Sam Klausnitzer, the Gatorade cross-country runner of the year in North Dakota. They just keep reloading in those distance events, and this year's really no different. No other school can place 5 to 6 athletes in the 800 through the 3,200 meters, and that's how they're able to separate themselves. They don't maybe have any obvious returning champions on the track, but they've got that certainly in John Tharaldson, who we've already discussed. And then Lyndon Mertz, the defending state champ in the pole vault. They're not quite as deep across disciplines this year, but come on. It's just not a contest every year with these guys.
Yeah, I mean, let's come on. Well, if the team title is pretty much a lock, are there any other good stories that we should be paying attention to throughout this season?
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see who fills the Landon Yoakum-sized hole in the sprint disciplines. I've mentioned Carter Gorney of Minot, again, a great runner, but Wapaton's Isaac Erickson is going to be in the mix in both the 2 and the 4. He was 4th in both of those events last year, as will Yoakum's Old Century teammates Jacob Richter and Andrew Steinwald. Richter's a strong guy in the 400. Steinwald finished top 5 in the 2 and the 300-meter hurdles last year. It'll be interesting to see if one guy emerges or if you've got a year where a bunch of different champions step up in each of those individual races.
All right, let's move to the girls' side now. Century's title streak doesn't have quite the longevity of the Bismarck boys, but 4 straight championships, obviously still impressive. Last year, the Patriots held off the Demons for the title by 18 points. What should we expect this year?
Honestly, I don't think it's going to be as close this time around. The Patriots graduated Miranda Merkel, who won the 1 and the 2 last year, but they bring back most of the group that placed in the top 3 in each of the relays. It's a great process of replacement. Gone is North Dakota pole vault record holder Lauren Geitzen, but her sister Morgan Geitzen, who was second last year, is going to step in to fill those shoes. Throws ace Kelsey Hall is departed, but they've got NDSU-bound Maggie Schwarzkopf coming in. They got 4 other throwers who placed at state last year. Plus, Century won the cross-country title this fall behind third-place finisher Kelby Anderson. She was second in the mile, third in the 2-mile as a freshman last year. They're really balanced, and they're really deep, and there just doesn't appear to be a solid threat on the horizon for the Patriots, which is saying something considering how good Bismarck High has been the last couple of years.
Well, Century's going to be really good again this year. We know that. But why don't you think the Demons are going to make a serious run at a title?
Yeah, I just don't think they've got the depth across disciplines like Century does. It's just, Bismarck does have Kara Hostler coming back, a sophomore that placed in 2 sprint events last year at state. She leads a really talented group of sprinters, with the majority coming back from the group that won the 4x2 and the 4x4 last spring. Plus, Blythe Manstrop, that's a fun name. She was great in the jumps as an 8th grader. She's only going to get better now that she's actually in high school. But there just aren't many returning medal winners from last year's team. It feels like they've got a lot of talent to replace, and at least on paper, it doesn't look like they've got obvious tested performers to fill in like Century does. With that said, they're still coming in second at state. They were 83 points better than third place Grand Forks Red River last year. It's a huge gap to make up. It's a 2-team race for the title this year again.
It certainly appears to be that way, Alex. And you're not done quite yet, so stick around. We're going to give you a track and field outlook for the biggest class in South Dakota. That's coming up right after the break.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back to Varsity Sports. One more lap, at least for this week, for this guy right here, Alex Heinert. We move into South Dakota track and field now, Alex. And let's start with the AA boys team race. Sioux Falls Lincoln won the title last year. Do they have enough coming back to repeat and complete a fall, winter, spring sweep? That's unheard of.
It'd be incredible if they do, and on paper, it certainly looks that way. The defending state champs won't have an individual outstanding sprinting talent like Adam Belhaj, who won gold medals in the 2, the 4, and the 4x4 relay last year at state, but they do boast the best distance runners in the state of South Dakota. They proved it again this fall by winning their 3rd straight AA cross-country title. The individual champ at that race and Stanford recruit Will Lauer did not compete at the state meet last year due to injury, but his addition is like a new signing in soccer. Really, the threat of 400, 800 threat Ned Subbeck and the distance relay man Nate Schroeder, and the emergence of sophomore Gabe Peters, who was second at the state cross-country meet, has Lincoln really in the driver's seat for a repeat. Head coach Jim Javrosky really feels like this team is ahead of where they were at last year. Wow. And that's a good sign for Pats fans, and it's a bad sign for everybody else.
Well, it obviously would be quite the year if they took the crown in football, basketball, and track. Who poses the biggest challenge for the Patriots this year?
In all honesty, it would be a big surprise if someone knocks them off the top spot. Lincoln won the title last year by 23 points over Roosevelt, and even though the Riders do bring back Taryn Christian and added Chase Vinatieri in the sprints, they lost more than Lincoln did with the graduation of Jack Lemke and David Mulba. Brandon Valley was 3rd at state last year, but they lose Cam Holmes and Ryan Mimiker to graduation. Stevens has a strong distance team and a great hurdler in Bennett Fierro, but they graduated a lot of place winners in 2014. It just feels like everybody else lost a lot. The picture's pretty murky for everybody else other than Sioux Falls Lincoln.
So you think we're looking at a repeat champion in AA boys? On the girls' side, Rapid City Stevens won the AA title again last year. Are they the team to beat yet again?
They're always the team to beat.
It's
since 1995, Stevens has either won or placed second in the state AA team standings every year. That's 20 years of uninterrupted excellence, including 13 straight titles from 96 to 2008. That's the longest run of any class in either gender in South Dakota. They won the title again last year after a brief 2-year hiatus. They also captured the state cross-country title this fall. They'll be essentially on their home track at state this year, with Day 2 taking place at O'Hara Stadium in Rapid City. They don't do it with overwhelming star power. Again, other than Tamara Gorman last year in the 3,200 meters, they didn't have any other individual winners at state last year, but they took first in every relay except the 4x4. And other than Gorman and fellow distance specialist Renee Dykstra, everybody's coming back. Emily Pearson, Jamie Schweiss, Kendra Dykstra, they're all top-notch from the 800 on up. Emily Delza leads a really underrated group of sprinters. It's going to take something special to knock them off that podium.
So you're saying it's another slam dunk for the Raiders, or whatever track and field analogy you want to use in place of that one.
That's right. I mean, it would seem that way based on everything that we just talked about. But There is something special going on at Brandon Valley right now. I'm not sure if they're ready to take the mantle away from Stevens just yet. They might be a year away, but you can't watch this group run and not be blown away by their depth, their talent, and their youth. They finished 5th last year at state. They were a solid 43.5 points behind Stevens, but with the exception of contributors Tiara Tingle and Evelyn Jordanson, everybody's back and everybody's faster, and they've added a budding superstar sprinting talent in 8th grader Krista Bickley. This kid was a Dan Lennon MVP a couple of weeks back in Vermilion. She ran side by side with Courtney Dowling in the 60 and the 200 at the Al Sali Invite last week at Aberdeen. Granted, Dowling had just won the 800 a few minutes before, but still, Bickley's emergence is a threat to get big points in the sprints, and the way that she bolsters an already good relay sprint squad makes them a real dark horse in AA. Her older sister Courtney's a great quarter miler. They've got other kids in different disciplines. They're going to be one to watch. I think they make it really interesting in that class.
Well, it's always good to have something to pay attention to as we go about the season. So certainly look forward to that. Thank you, Alex, for all that great information. We're going to talk Class A and B next week here on Varsity Sports. Coming up next, we'll look ahead to what's sure to be a busy spring sports calendar.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by AE Tech Electrical Training Center in Rapid City. Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields.
And welcome back. Well, before we go, we want to take a look at what's going to be a crazy busy spring sports schedule across the Dakotas. First up, the long-range forecast. These are some of the big events coming up in the high school track and field season. First up, April 23rd and 24th, North Dakota Relays in Bismarck. The Howard Wood Dakota Relays, that's always a huge one. May 1st and 2nd in Sioux Falls. There's 2 state track meets, May 22nd and 23rd in North Dakota. That taking place in Bismarck. The 29th and 30th is the South Dakota State track meet in Rapid City, Spearfish, and Sturgis.
And then look at a little more short term on the baseball softball schedule. We've got the weekly planner, some of the best games coming up over the next 7 days. And I'm really interested on Thursday to see how good Minot is. A 4-0 start for them against Mandan. Brookings playing Washington, another good one. And then some cross-state battles. We've got West Fargo Invitational, the fast pitch tournament coming up Friday. And then Friday through Saturday, the border battle. Always fun. You've got the Fargo teams going against the Sioux Falls teams.
For Jason Andera, I'm Jay Elsen. We'll see you back here next week.